Fatty Arbuckle. Roscoe "Fatty" Arbuckle was once one of the highest-paid actors in Hollywood, a comedic legend whose star burned brighter than most during the silent film era. But his fall from grace was just as dramatic as any role he ever played. In 1921, Arbuckle hosted a wild party at the St. Francis Hotel in San Francisco, a night that ended in tragedy when aspiring actress Virginia Rappe died under mysterious circumstances. Arbuckle was accused of rape and manslaughter, sparking one of the most sensational scandals in Hollywood history. Though he was eventually acquitted after 3 trials, the damage was done. The press painted him as a monster, and the public was hungry for blood. His films were banned, and his reputation never recovered. Arbuckle became a symbol of Hollywood excess, a cautionary tale of fame gone rotten. While some argue he was a scapegoat, others believe the dark rumors hinted at a hidden lifestyle far removed from his jolly on-screen persona. Either way, Fatty Arbuckle's name became forever linked with corruption, scandal, and the darker underbelly of old Hollywood. Errol Flynn. Errol Flynn was the ultimate swashbuckling heartthrob, charming, daring, and irresistibly handsome. But behind the dashing roles and devil-may-care grin was a man plagued by scandal and moral decay. Known for his womanizing and wild lifestyle, Flynn became the face of Hollywood excess in the 1930s and 40s. His taste for underage girls led to a sensational 1942 trial where he was charged with statutory rape. Though acquitted, the case tarnished his golden boy image forever. The phrase "in like Flynn" was born from the case, symbolizing his reputation for sexual conquest and scandal. Off-screen, he was an alcoholic, often unreliable on set, and increasingly erratic. Rumors swirled about drug use, Nazi sympathies, and even a taste for the occult. Whether myth or truth, Flynn embodied the dark double life of Hollywood's elite, glamorous by day, corrupted by night. His autobiography, My Wicked, Wicked Ways, confirmed many of the wild tales, cementing his legacy as not just a silver screen legend, but one of the most corrupt icons of Hollywood's golden age. Charlie Chaplin. Charlie Chaplin, the man behind the beloved tramp character, was a comedic genius who helped shape the very foundation of cinema. But behind his bowler hat and slapstick brilliance lay a much darker side. Chaplin had a troubling obsession with young girls, often pursuing relationships with teenagers while he was in his 30s and 40s. His marriages to 16-year-old Mildred Harris and later to 15-year-old Lita Gray sparked major scandals. Gray's divorce filings accused Chaplin of emotional abuse and sordid sexual behavior, making headlines that nearly destroyed his career. He also faced paternity suits and political scrutiny, branded a communist sympathizer during the Red Scare. The FBI compiled a massive file on him, eventually leading to his exile from the United States in 1952. Though revered as a cinematic pioneer, Chaplin's personal life was riddled with controversy, manipulation, and moral ambiguity. His legacy is a sharp contrast between the innocent figure he portrayed on screen and the unsettling truths that followed him off it, securing his place among the most morally corrupt legends of old Hollywood. Wallace Beery. Wallace Beery was one of MGM's top stars, known for his gruff charm and memorable roles in films like The Champ and Treasure Island. But behind the scenes, Beery was anything but lovable. He had a notorious reputation for being abusive, cruel, and downright violent. Co-stars often complained about his bullying behavior on set, especially child actors, whom he reportedly mistreated mercilessly. But perhaps the darkest shadow over Beery's legacy is the rumor that he was involved in the suspicious death of comedian Ted Healy, the founder of the Three Stooges. According to Hollywood Whispers, Beery, along with mob-connected studio enforcers, may have beaten Healy during a drunken altercation in 1937, just days before Healy died under mysterious circumstances. Though nothing was ever proven, MGM allegedly sent Beery on a sudden vacation to Europe until the heat cooled down. Combine that with years of toxic behavior, and Beery's legacy takes a sinister turn. He may have played rough but lovable characters on screen, but in real life, Wallace Beery was one of the most feared and disliked actors in Golden Age Hollywood. George Raft. George Raft wasn't just playing gangsters, he lived like one. Known for his tough guy roles in classics like Scarface and They Drive by Night, Raft's real-life connections to the mob were no Hollywood illusion. Born in New York's rough Hell's Kitchen, Raft rose through the underworld before landing in showbiz, and he never really left his shady roots behind. He was close friends with infamous mobsters like Bugsy Siegel and Meyer Lansky, and was often seen rubbing elbows with the most dangerous men in America. Many believe Raft used his influence to help mob associates avoid prison or gain favor in Hollywood. Some even say he sabotaged other actors' careers to maintain his own spot in the spotlight. His mafia ties eventually led studios to distance themselves, and his career took a nosedive in the 1950s. While Raft never faced formal charges, his reputation as a real-life gangster in a gangster's suit made him one of the most suspicious and corrupt figures in Golden Age cinema. For George Raft, the line between real life and real crime was razor-thin. Frank Sinatra, the voice, Blue Eyes, a cultural icon. But while he crooned love songs and dazzled on screen, Sinatra's real-life connections were far from squeaky clean. Behind that charm and swagger was a man with deep ties to organized crime. The FBI kept a thick file on him, over 2,000 pages, linking him to mob bosses like Sam Giancana and Lucky Luciano. Sinatra allegedly used his influence to open doors for the mafia in Hollywood and Las Vegas, and rumors swirled that he helped mobsters secure casino deals and launder money through the entertainment industry. He was even accused of leveraging his fame to sway political outcomes, including helping John F. Kennedy get elected, only to be cut off once his mob connections became too dangerous. On top of that, Sinatra was known for violent outbursts, womanizing, and intimidating rivals. Though never formally charged, his connections and conduct made him one of Hollywood's most dangerously influential figures. Frank Sinatra wasn't just a superstar. He was a man whose real power came from the shadows, where fame, politics, and corruption danced together. Robert Mitchum had the smoldering stare, the deep voice, and a reputation for playing anti-heroes long before it was cool. But off-screen, Mitchum was just as rebellious and reckless. In 1948, he was busted in a high-profile marijuana sting, a scandal that could have ended any other actor's career. Instead, it only boosted his bad boy image. But drugs were just the tip of the iceberg. Mitchum was known for his wild lifestyle, brawling in bars, showing up drunk on set, and flouting authority at every turn. He often mocked Hollywood's polished facade, calling out industry hypocrisy while diving headfirst into it. Some insiders claimed he had connections to underground gambling and illicit clubs, using his fame to skate past consequences. And despite being married for decades, Mitchum was notorious for his womanizing and disregard for social norms. He walked the fine line between charisma and chaos, charming audiences while giving the finger to Hollywood's golden rules. Robert Mitchum didn't just play the outlaw, he was the outlaw, and that made him one of the most corrupt and compelling figures of classic cinema. Lionel Atwill was a master of playing sinister villains on screen, but his real-life secrets were even darker. Known for his roles in horror classics like Son of Frankenstein and Mystery of the Wax Museum, Atwill exuded a commanding presence that hid a scandalous private life. In 1942, his career took a shocking blow when he was indicted for perjury during a grand jury investigation into a wild, secret sex party held at his Hollywood mansion. The event allegedly involved underage attendees and indecent acts, rumors that rocked Tinseltown. Though he received only probation, the scandal effectively blacklisted him from major studios. Whispers swirled that Atwill hosted more of these risque gatherings, involving fellow actors and producers in a secret world of elite debauchery. While never proven beyond the courtroom testimony, the stories cast a lasting shadow over his legacy. Once respected for his theatrical prowess, Atwill became known as one of Hollywood's darkest secrets. His fall from grace wasn't just about broken laws. It was about a man whose off-screen depravity matched, and perhaps even surpassed, the villains he portrayed on film. Spade Cooley went from Western swing superstar to one of the darkest cautionary tales in entertainment history. In the 1940s, he was a beloved musician, actor, and TV host, known as the King of Western Swing. But beneath the rhinestones and cowboy charm was a violent, jealous man spiraling out of control. His fall came in 1961, when he brutally tortured and murdered his wife, Ella May, in front of their teenage daughter. The details were horrific. He beat her for hours, stomped on her head, and reportedly bragged afterward that she would never lie again. Cooley was convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison. Shockingly, he was granted a temporary 72-hour furlough to perform at a sheriff's benefit concert in 1969, but he dropped dead from a heart attack after the show. His death marked the dramatic end to a career that had once sparkled with promise. Among Golden Age figures, no story spirals from fame to pure corruption quite like Spade Cooley's. a man who became infamous not just for his crimes, but for the cruelty behind them. Joan Crawford. Joan Crawford was the epitome of old Hollywood glamour, poised, elegant, and fiercely ambitious. But behind the designer gowns and icy stare was a woman whose private life became a storm of scandal and emotional darkness. Known for her controlling nature and obsessive perfectionism, Crawford ruled her household with an iron fist. Her adopted daughter, Christina Crawford, exposed the alleged horrors of Joan's private world in the explosive memoir Mommy Dearest. The book claimed Joan was physically and emotionally abusive, beating her children, demanding obedience through fear, and erupting in violent alcohol-fueled rages. The infamous no-wire hangers scene wasn't just drama, it was a window into a deeply troubled persona. Beyond the home, Crawford's ruthless climb up the Hollywood ladder included rumored affairs with studio executives, calculated power plays, and even a whisper campaign against rival actresses. She may have been a screen legend, but her legacy is permanently stained by stories of corruption behind closed doors. For many, Joan Crawford remains a symbol of how stardom can mask a deeply twisted reality, where the real horror was happening off-screen. Robert Taylor. Robert Taylor was the quintessential leading man of Hollywood's golden age, handsome, talented, and the very image of the perfect on-screen hero. But beneath the polished exterior, Taylor's life was far more complicated and filled with hidden corruption. Taylor was not just an actor. He was deeply involved in the political climate of his time, particularly during the McCarthy era. While other actors were blacklisted for suspected communist ties, Taylor willingly cooperated with the House Un-American Activities Committee, WAC, and testified against his colleagues, betraying friends and peers in exchange for his own career protection. His actions left a stain on his reputation that never quite faded. In his personal life, Taylor was known for his cold and distant demeanor, especially in his marriage to actress Barbara Stanwyck, which ended in a bitter divorce. He also had rumored affairs and a string of relationships that seemed driven by ambition rather than love. Though he enjoyed success throughout his career, Robert Taylor's legacy is overshadowed by the compromises and moral ambiguities that defined both his personal and professional life. Gary Cooper. Gary Cooper was the all-American leading man, tall, stoic, and admired for his roles in classic films like High Noon and Sergeant York. His on-screen persona portrayed integrity, courage, and honor, but off-screen, Cooper's life was far more complicated and morally ambiguous. Known for his numerous extramarital affairs, Cooper's private life was a maze of scandal. His relationship with his co-star Patricia Neal, while he was still married to his wife, became one of Hollywood's worst-kept secrets. But that was only the surface. Cooper was also tied to some of Hollywood's more corrupt dealings, including reportedly using his influence to protect his career by helping certain studio heads silence negative press or rival actors. Beyond the scandals, Cooper's political affiliations were also questionable, rumored to have been sympathetic to conservative and even reactionary ideologies, especially during the height of the McCarthy hearings. Despite his image as the moral hero on screen, Gary Cooper's life behind the scenes was a tangled web of infidelity, political influence, and shady dealings that revealed a very different side of the Hollywood legend. Chico Marx. Chico Marx was beloved for his quick wit and charming antics in the Marx Brothers comedy films, where he played the lovable Italian schemer. But the real Chico was far from the light-hearted persona he portrayed on screen. Behind the laughter and chaos, Chico struggled with serious personal demons, including a deep involvement in the underworld. He had ties to mobsters and reportedly used his fame and connections to avoid run-ins with the law, especially regarding his involvement in shady business dealings and gambling. Chico's gambling addiction was notorious. He lost large sums of money in high-stakes poker games and reportedly even owed money to notorious gangsters, who used their influence to bail him out of trouble. His marriages and relationships were equally troubled, with rumors of infidelities and poor financial management that left him with significant debt. While he never faced legal consequences as severe as some of his contemporaries, Chico Marx lived a life far removed from the carefree comedy he showcased on screen, embodying a stark contrast between his public image and the man behind the laughs. Mabel Normand. Mabel Normand was one of the biggest stars of the silent film era, a comedienne whose charm and wit made her a favorite of Charlie Chaplin and other Hollywood heavyweights. However, her fame came with a dark side, one that was marred by scandal, corruption, and tragedy. In 1922, Normand's career took a dramatic turn, when she was involved in the mysterious death of director William Desmond Taylor. Taylor's unsolved murder became one of Hollywood's most sensational scandals, and though Normand was never charged, she was heavily implicated in the investigation. At the time, she had been romantically linked to Taylor, and rumors of a love triangle with other prominent Hollywood figures only added fuel to the fire. Beyond the murder mystery, Normand's personal life was filled with misfortune and bad decisions. She struggled with gambling addiction and was known for her wild behavior on and off set, which damaged her reputation. Once a rising star, Mabel Normand's name became synonymous with scandal and tragedy, marking the dark side of early Hollywood.